amateur racer myself, I feel like I hit a wall figuratively when it comes to racing because I go to the limits of what I feel as opposed to being very specific and technical. And when racers talk about their regimen and their discipline and everything, there's a structure to it. And when you're there are so many things that separate amateurs from pros, but one of them is that focus that racers have. And so getting them in a room, what are they going to talk about?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, Trimble one time was telling me about one of her friends. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Faust or something like that. And she was like, I've got, like, 10 breaking points. If you told me, like, give me 2 tenths or 7 tenths, I could give you that. But Tanner would be like, you need 93? Mm-hmm. Okay, here's 93%. What do you want? 78%? Here's 78%. And that fine difference between what a pro can do and what a really talented driver can do is acres away.
Have you ever read David Foster Wallace's essay on the 120th ranked tennis player in the world?
I think I remember hearing about this.
It's amazing because here you have this guy who's ranked 120th, and he could just clean all of our clocks when it comes to tennis. But what separates him from the number one ranked person in the world in tennis is fractions. Yeah. When you have somebody that high, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'd think 120th. Oh man, they're just a schlub.
Right.
But they are
unbelievable. Yeah.
But fractions separate them. And so it's like the 120th ranked race car driver in the world could probably do 97% of what Tanner could do, or 97% of what Joseph Newgarden could do, or something like that. It's just in those, one person went right, he went left, and that's what separates them. So it's like seeing people at that height, it's like you have to shed everything else and just focus on that.
I was looking at Max Chilton's Instagram the other day, and he posted some results from like 2005 or something like that in some race. I don't even know what race it was. And there was, 25 or 30 people in it. And he's like, look, the old days, I got first and whatever. And it was like, tenths or hundredths. And then the next 30 guys are all like hundredths right or there. Tenths apart. Like if the lap time was a 47, by the 30th guy, it was like a 48 and a half right was there. Like the spread. You're like, how can you be so finite? How can you be so close? And think about all the little things that just go into one little term where you just shed a tenth or a quarter even. Little things, and they're all just grouped right in there.
Can you name the guy who came in 30th?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Exactly. Or 10th.
And that's the funny thing. They will never have a career that anyone will ever know about. And they're devastatingly fast. Mm-hmm. That we're going to do a talk with Smurs, with Brett Smurs.
Oh, yeah.
Smurs is stupid fast.
Stupid fast.
Stupid fast. And nobody knows who Smurs is on, car guys. I think some people know because of, the stunt driving and maybe in the race world. But like, he passed me at Buttonwillow one time on the inside.
Someone passed you at Buttonwillow?
Surprisingly.
Wow.
He passed me going up over Phil Hill on the on the inside.
Wait. Counterclockwise or clockwise?
Clockwise.
Okay.
On the inside of Phil Hill, after I had already committed in and nose was like getting pretty close to the inside curbing, and he just comes up, over, across, sliding across, and just gone, like nothing had happened. He was like the Kaiser Soze of racing, like just gone.
Well, and the hand movements and everything is just like
and he hangs that thing out there the whole time too.
Yeah, right on the limit of adhesion, knowing that the back end could go. I went with Patrick Lindsay at Buttonwillow. And this is a good story because he was going to instruct me in my car, and I suffered some car issues, so I couldn't go out. And he goes, well, you bid on this auction item, I owe you a ride. So he got out in his GT3, had 800 miles on it, had just picked it up, and he was going out there. And I actually learned more in that ride than I would have had he instructed me, because I saw how much more grip these cars had than I could ever hope to approximate or even get close to. And the second thing is, and this humanized him more and actually gave me more instruction, was there was a guy in our event who was faster than he was and was coming up on him and chasing him around the track. And I saw him lose focus. I saw the red mist come out, and I saw him start to make mistakes. And I thought, okay, this is where you have to pull it together. When you have somebody behind you and you're separated within fractions of a second. And I think that's what also gives these people the edge who are at the top of their game, because they have the foresight to know that if they are 10th or if they are 30th, nobody's ever going to know who they are. And it's not just the fans, it's also the owners, the people who look for drivers. I mean, I just saw this movie called The Return, which was about Ford coming back to Le Mans.
Yeah.
And the racers that they picked, to handpick those racers to know exactly what they were going to do. But so anyway, you have these racers who know that if they don't finish within a certain class, they'll be forgotten by everyone.
Yeah.
And not just fans. And it's just it's crazy to be able to do that. And to have somebody like Brett who can just kick your ass on the top of Phil Hill, and nobody knows his name.
Yeah. And it's amazing. But then you even look at the whole racing world's gotten so crazy, right? Because what was it, 2 years ago or something like that, where Scott Pruitt got downgraded from like platinum to gold or something, whatever those ridiculous rankings are. And it's like one of the most winning sports car drivers of all time. And like, oh, sorry, Scott, no longer platinum because you didn't, do X, Y, and Z this year. It's like, he is one of the best drivers around, period. He I'd put him in he's probably in the top 10, if not top 7 or 5 maybe of modern race car drivers, I think, in a lot of regards. Maybe we can exclude maybe F1 out of there because there's a lot of talent in there, but sports car driving for sure. And sorry, Scott. Sorry, but better luck next year.
You didn't accrue enough whatever frequent flyer miles in racing. So sorry. No more free check bags. No more economy plus upgrades.
Yeah, exactly. The lounge. No more lounge.
You're kicked to the curb.
You're back in
the world of racing.
Yeah, with the hay. Yeah, exactly. So what's exciting right now in the car world? What are you like antsy to get your hands on?
I don't know if I'm always antsy to get my hands on great cars like a McLaren 720S or, apparently Chevy is coming out with this mid-engine Corvette.
Yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. But it's also...
For the millionth time. Oh, here it comes. It sounds like it's really actually happening this time.
It's really happening. I think it keeps getting delayed, which is unfortunate. I don't know if it was going to be at Detroit, but all signs pointed to maybe, and then just didn't happen.
I heard pricing structure on it, though. There was some whisper down the lane pricing structure, and there was basically 3 models that what I was hearing that were going to come out, and I don't know if any of it was ever publicly divulged, so I won't get into it. But that said, the high model was not only an interesting design for price, but it was an interesting design for the motor, which I thought was really, really interesting. I'm curious to see whether or not it comes to fruition, from what I had heard anyway.
Yeah, I think it's on a Fiero chassis. And
I think it is Fiero.
Yeah.
LS4.
Well, you can put an LS4 in a Fiero.
I know. That's what
I mean, here's the thing. Look, if you can make a Fiero look like a Ferrari-ish, why not just pull it out of mothballs?
Why didn't the LS4 become a more popular swap engine for mid-engine platform cars? You think that like when that came out, you would have thought the Fiero guys, the MR2 guy, whoever had mid-engine cars
Caymans.
would just but it's transversely.
You can get one in there.
Yeah, can you?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've seen LS3. There's a guy who drives around LA with a LS swapped Boxster, I think. Or maybe it is a Cayman.
Yeah, there is. It's I've seen it at the track.
Yeah, silver, right? I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the Corvette will be interesting if it comes out.
I'm trying to think of interesting cars because the car world is in such upheaval right now with GM and Ford just kind of abandoning cars for the most part and going to SUVs.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the mid 2000s all over again.
Yeah.
And
but what about Chrysler? What do you think about Chrysler right now? Chrysler's doing something interesting, right? Because they're in some ways the only people I think that are making muscle cars that the public is actually consuming.
They're so well positioned. There was actually an article about this just a few weeks ago about how FCA had either through strategy or negligence or a little bit of both, these cars got continuous upgrades. The platform got a little bit better every time and started to abandon those W210 routes as they got better. And, they were supposed to move it to the Alpha platform, the Julia platform. Yeah. And they decided not to do that and stick with this mutant Mercedes platform or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, they're uniquely positioned. Chrysler as a brand, not so much because you've got two cars.
Right.
You've got the 300 and then the Town & Country, and I don't see a Town & Country SRT coming anytime soon. Or a Pacifica, Pacifica.
Which would be kind of cool, actually.
But
But they've tried this. They've tried to just SRT everything, and like the SRT Crossfire. Like, what was that car?
Well, that was the merger of equals, right?
It was. That was the funniest
Talk about
definition
Mercedes
of the funniest definition of merger of equalers.
Well, I think Chrysler's heart has always been in the right place, and it's always been a lack of funding going as far back as let's take a look. I know this isn't a trip down amnesia lane, but just as an aside, take a look at the Chrysler LH cars that came out in '93. They were longitudinally mounted, so you could do front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, or rear-wheel drive in the same platform, and that was their mission. They were going to do that, and they just ran out of money. So you have the makings of something great. It's not like GM where I think you have glimpses of great. Something like the Corvette. You have this phenomenally powerful and great handling car surrounded by questionable plastics and ergonomics and just this half-assery that comes out of the GM culture, which is part of it are people saying it's good enough. You have bean counters who say no, we have to pull back here, and you've got these passionate engineers whose dreams never make it to fruition because of those layers. So that's GM. Chrysler, you have a bunch of scrappy engineers who make it work on a shoestring budget. It's kind of like when they bought AMC. It's like they inherited that scrappiness. And when the 300 came out in 2005, I think that was a great way of saying, this is our attitude and this is what we're about. And never mind the fact that the crash happened. They needed bailouts. They were owned by the guy from Home Depot for a hot second. That spirit was there. And so when cash started flowing in again, they were like, okay, we can focus on this stuff. And they found a savior in Fiat to kind of double down on that scrappiness, as it were, and turn it into a brand, Dodge in this case, where you're SRTing all the things instead of LS all the things, you SRT all the things. So when you see a Charger and when you see a Challenger, you do think performance. You don't think poser, even if it is a V6 automatic.
And they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah.
It's incredible. And that's the really interesting thing about that platform, right? Is that just as much as the person who wants something that looks a certain way, but really, has an entry-level budget, you can also slide all the way down the scale to street-driven drag cars
Yeah.
that are, fairly expensive cars for what they are, right?
Yeah.
They're covering, but I don't know anyone at all who talks about it to me, who's like, you know what, I can't wait to get a Challenger, I can't wait to get a Charger, but they're everywhere and people are buying them. They have this great, I don't hear the excitement, but the excitement is in the amount of cars that are out there, right? They're selling, but I don't hear it. Like, has anyone come to you and be like, you know what I can't wait to get, Derek? Yeah. Really can't wait for that new SRT 8300.
I think
you're
I'm
just
hanging out with the wrong people. I think I believe that what you're talking about used to be so much more prevalent. We could go back to the late 60s, and it was true of all three manufacturers and AMC, I guess, where you would say, I can't wait to get that Charger, I can't wait to get that Challenger. The youth was super excited to get to hop on the rapid transit train that Plymouth was selling. The Mustang with the big blocks just kind of shattered the myth of a secretary's car. And to that day, I think the spirit is alive in Dodge, and you and I see the car industry much more comprehensively. And we hang out with Porsche people, and we hang out with BMW, AMG, Ferrari, Lamborghini, and so our metrics are kind of skewed because we have access to these people who say, oh yeah, I just got rid of my Gallardo because the Aventador came out, and
fair enough.
I think my next car is going to be blue. What we're not party to is a large swath of the population who might love those cars but see things from a much more practical point of view. And for them, it's not like, think of a Chevy right now that's not a Corvette. Think of a Chevy right now that you would say, oh man, I can't wait to get the Chevy.
Yeah, what Chevy?
Yeah, I can't talk here.
Yeah.
It's like, and would you be like, oh man, I can't wait to get the Ford Edge ST?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the ridiculous thing that the Flex? The Flex.
I like the
What?
Flex. I like the Flex.
What?
I like big, weird, boxy vehicles.
I love that they made it.
Yeah, I love that they made it too.
I love that they made it. There's so many cars in this world that I love that people have made, even though I think they are horrendous.
Did you know that aside from the F-Series, that was the best-selling Ford in California?
In California, I believe that.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. But you're not going to say, oh man, I really want a Taurus SHO.
Right.
And so I think Dodge is the only one where if you reach out to the Heartland, or if you reach out to people who don't have designs on a Lambo or a Ferrari or something in six figures, not only does the Charger have a spread from $27,000 car to $70,000 car. Name another model that has a 500 horsepower spread.
and that's not even an exaggeration. No. 500 horsepower, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's 306 horsepower or so, 304 horsepower on the SXT, on the 6-cylinder, and then you go to 797?
Something like that.
So,
but yeah. even in there is some comedy of a sign of the times, right? That the SXT 6-cylinder is making through. And LT1 Corvette, a C4 Corvette, was making 300 horsepower, and that was the bar. Or oh man, you have a Corvette, holy hell!
Don't forget, it started out at 230 horsepower.
Yeah.
With this crossfire injection. Sadness.
Oh yeah, and the 4+3.
The Doug Nash.
Oh my god.
It was sad. Yeah, you went from third and then boom.
Yeah, just fourth. Fell on its face. Yeah.
Consider one thing that you guys are skirting around that Dodge, Chrysler, and Jeep have that Ford and Chevrolet do not, which is what BMW and Mercedes and Audi all have. They have a performance brand that's overarching. They have RS, AMG, and M.
Mm-hmm.
Chevrolet and Ford don't have anything like that. They have SS, and Ford has Shelby, Ford Performance, and ST, but none of them really carry as much clout as SRT does.
And that's a good
on
point.
any level.
And that's a good point, too, because there isn't that draw of its own namesake kind of branding, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean,
when you want an M or you want an AMG, yeah, like, you know.
But how many people, and that is an excellent point, but how many people separate that out with Dodge, where they're like, oh, I want the SRT. You know,
I actually think
Charger,
it's a little bit more with Dodge.
Really? I think Charger and Challenger, it's the brand there is Hemi.
Fair enough, but I think the SRT name has become prolific enough that if you were to say it to someone who's not really a car person, but if you said, oh, I got an SRT, you know, Chrysler or Dodge or whatever, the understanding would be there that that's something more special.
Okay.
That is my
disbelieving okay, but I'll let you have the point.
Well, I'm all right with that. So you're excited about the potential for the Corvette.
I'm excited about the potential for the Corvette. You know, I think this conversation has been very insightful because, you know, as a whole, I'm trying to think what the direction is for performance. When you have a Tesla that can just, an all-wheel drive Tesla that can just like flatten your face when you mash the pedal.
Tesla Model 3, 0 to 60 in 3.3, 3.2,
Yeah,
something like that. Then the all-wheel drive.
Did you see the video of the Tesla S? It was stripped and caged.
Oh,
gosh. They were doing like straight drag races, and every single race was just decimating, like fully stripped out, like almost pro street cars.
I'm so excited about
this.
this.
One guy in this Mustang got infuriated. He was like, you put me on the side with the water and I lost traction. He was like, I'll switch with you. Did the exact same thing, walked on him.
And then the Mustang ran over everybody on the way up.
But it's I mean, that's the direction things are heading, you know? I mean, but
well, no. So, yeah, I just did a comparo with Motor Trend of the Model 3, and so we did kind of like a past, present, future kind of thing of the performance car. And when you say that, think about post 1972. What would you think of for performance car until the resurgence of fuel injection and OBD2 and all that stuff? So right now, I think we're at a weird point where Dodge is showing us that, oh hey, yeah, you can have an 800 horsepower sedan, and they're also saying, oh, here's 1,000 pound-feet of torque, so you can tow your 35,000 pound yacht. But you also have companies who are really embracing electrification. Polestar, for example, everything is going to have either a hybrid powertrain or an all-electric powertrain. That Polestar is the Volvo performance arm, and they're going to focus on performance-only powertrains, starting with, I would say, nothing's official yet, but I think they'll start with the super turbocharged hybrid engine that you can find in the Volvo T8 models, and then going to pure electrification. So this article we did was taking the Alfa Giulia Quadrifoglio, which is arguably one of the best performance sedans out there today, in terms of balance, in terms of performance, not in terms of reliability.
Or looks, I don't think. I don't like it.
Okay, so I like the Giulia from the front to, I would say, the C-pillar.
Yeah.
And then
C-pillar, I wouldn't even go that far.
Okay.
I go to the A-pillar.
A-pillar? All right. Okay, A-pillar. I will split the hair with you. And then you get to the back and you're like, what car is this?
Yeah.
What is this, an Infiniti? Is it a Chrysler 400? I'm sorry, the Maserati Ghibli?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it a Mazda 3? I don't know what this car is.
Yeah.
So we took that. We took the Jag I-Pace, which might be surprising, but it's
We're
whatever.
definitely coming back to the I-Pace. But
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And then we had the Model 3 performance dude, and we took those around the streets of Willow, and that 3, I mean, it just, I really liked it because the engineers at Tesla were listening. They brought a car that was willing to play. It wasn't there to tell you what the best line was. It wasn't there to say, okay, I'm going to rein this in so you can get this perfect, this perfect arc around the apex. It was, oh, you want to slide a little? Yeah, let's slide a little. Oh, you want to hoon? Let's hoon. You want to get 4 wheels off? Let's do it. And I think that right there is a perfect definition of performance. And I think we should get back to racing about that. Because I feel like if you get too close to perfection, if you align all those zeros and ones in the programming, what's the point? So what if you're the quickest around the track? If there's no emotional involvement, why are you out there in the first place?
Yeah.
Sorry, I went off on a tangent.
But well, then, do you think that the electrification and shift that way is missing that? Or do you think you can still find that in?
Well, I think Tesla actually answered that question partially when they were there. My takeaway was it's a great start. There's a lot left to do because then you start to think of track days. Okay, you get rapid charging. You can recharge it. You get a 20-minute session. Which was another thing. I mean, I've seen this guy take a Model S onto the track for years, but he can't do the whole 20-minute session because the motors just say no, we're too hot, batteries, forget it. But the Model 3 with its track mode, you've got like tons of cooling fans about the size of windmills. It really keeps things in check, so you could do 20 minutes on the track. So you charge it, and then you do another 20 minutes, whatever. But what do you do when you have to go home? Like, you get a partial charge. Can you make it all the way back? Do you have to tow it there? I think it's gonna recalibrate how you view a track day. Whereas right now we're like, all right, we do 20 minutes, or we do a race, and then we pop some gas in and go to the bathroom and go back out. And so my takeaway was right now electrification dictates how you're going to plan something, whether you're planning errands, whether you're planning a trip, whether you're planning a track day. It's not the same impulsive thing that you can do right now.
It's funny. We were talking about that with Bernard Lee, and we were kind of saying about, he goes, well, do you drive 300 miles in a day kind of thing? It's actually, there are some days I actually do. But I was speculating that I think the sign of the times of the track will be when you have a tow vehicle that has the capacity to get you there and back that is an electric tow vehicle. If let's say Rivian, right, who's touting some big range and some big tow figures, if you can,
An electric tow vehicle, you say?
I think when you get to the track...
Stay tuned.
I think when you get to the track, and I don't want to cover material that we've kind of already covered, but I think when you get to the track in your, SUV that's electric powered, and come home with that will be the sign of the times really at the track. Not even so much the cars, but how you're getting the cars there. Because once you get to that point, I think most of the hurdles for the track cars are almost solved at that point.
Yeah.
But the I-Pace is interesting. Let's get back to that one.
Sure.
Jaguar has made an absolutely incredible effort to market this thing, right? It is everywhere. They're doing everything. I saw one on the road for the first time today. Manufacturer tags. What is going wrong with that car? Why are they making such a big effort towards it? And they're, you go to the dealer, they kind of go, oh yeah, you got to act now. These things are flying off the shelves. They're not. They are sitting there collecting dust. What's going wrong on the Jaguar end? Why are they not able to transform this into sales?
That's a really interesting question. I think part of it is the normal Jag customer isn't going to Jaguar to find an electric vehicle.
I agree.
You're going there for. I think we have to back up like 10 years when it comes to Jag, because for the longest time it was the XJ and the XK, and that's all you had. Or I mean, if you want to talk about the little Mondeo thing they had too. And it's only been in the past couple of years that they've diversified into SUVs and really touted the, what's the middle one? The
XF?
XF,
Yeah.
as a more mainstream competitor, and now you've got the baby one. And so not only are they diversifying in terms of product, but they're also diversifying in terms of powertrain. So how many people do you know that are going to go into Jag and say, you know what, I really want a diesel. I really want a diesel Jag.
That's my wife calling. Right in the middle.
Wow.
It's almost like she knew.
It is.
God.
So for Jag, you're diversifying into powertrains as well as product. And I think for the most part, the customers who are going into the Jag dealership are looking for a coupe or a sedan, and now an SUV. And where does the I-Pace fit in? Where does the I-Pace fit in when you have the E-Pace, the F-Pace, the XJ, the XF, the XE? Is that the...
You know better than
I
I
know,
do. This is
I
why
know.
it gets blurry for me, and
Yeah.
why I think part of the problem is.
And you have the E-Pace, which should be called the I-Pace, and the I-Pace, which should be called the E-Pace. And for the most part, Jags, when you get in and you start it, you there's an emotional connection, and they've long touted themselves as, you know, the car for somebody who wants something a little bit different than a BMW or an Audi. And the I-Pace is kind of like, well, how do you market that? How do you talk to a traditional? How do you take a traditional Jag salesperson who is talking to a traditional Jag customer about a car of the future? How do you get in this car and be like, oh, well, this is just like an XFS, or it's just, this is the XJ of the future, because it's so completely different. I would argue that the I-Pace portends the future more than the Tesla does at this point. If we're taking a look at the I-Pace and the Model 3, the Model 3 is a great car in its own right, but it's, with all these sporting pretensions that they're throwing at it right now, it is more of a competitor to a sports sedan than it is the electric car of the future, because the shape of the I-Pace, the way it's packaged, it feels just more like a futuristic car. And so I think that's where you're getting the disconnect, because if you think Jag, I don't know, when I ask you what you think of Jag, like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
See, it's interesting, because as you're saying that, I was thinking about how most people that I know, people who like cars, I think if you say, what do you think about Jag, most of us will say, I like Jags. Mm-hmm. They're pretty cool. They've got throaty, nice engines in them. They're actually, reasonably comfortable cars. I think most of them are reasonably good-looking cars. There's some that are hit or miss, and I liked the new XJ when it came out. I thought it was a good-looking car. I still do. It's getting a little, dusty now.
It's like
but
24 years old now.
Yeah, it's a little dusty.
Yeah.
But I still liked it. I think the XKs are good-looking cars. The F-Types are great-looking cars. And they're great driving cars, too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of excitement, I think, with Jag, but it doesn't translate into people buying them. I don't know anybody who buys Jags that are our age, but yet we like them. So when I think about Jag, I think about these great, slidey, loud, obnoxious, fun cars that they make, as well as these, I think, good-looking, like the XJ interior, I always thought was a beautiful interior, the way the dash had kind of that lip to it in the back that followed around, these great vents and beautiful speakers. It's a nice-looking car, but it doesn't translate, right? So it's almost this nebulous blob of who's actually buying them, because it's either people who are, people like you or I or younger people that are just very sporadically going into dealers and buying them, or it's an older crowd that doesn't really fall into, the crowd that maybe the typical car people. Like, if I go to, maybe let's say I meet with a client, or let's say you go to a Cars and Coffee and you're just talking, and you never hear somebody say like, "Oh, what do you drive, day to day?" No one ever says a Jag, ever. I mean, it's pretty rare. I mean, they'll say, oh, they may have an E-Type, or they may have, some cars that are in there, but it's always, Mercedes or BMW, etc. So who I think about when I think about Jag, and what do I think of them, it's this nebulous bubble of where are these cars going, but they're these interesting pieces, I think, nonetheless. So it's almost it's almost as big of an enigma to me as I think what their buying audience is to them. I don't know if they have a strict buying audience anymore. Who is buying Jag?
In a way, it's very similar to Cadillac's reinvention of themselves, when they used to have like the ST and the DTS and all these huge boat cars, and then you started to get into the CTS and then the ATS. And they went for a completely different direction, a completely different set of buyers, and it's difficult for salesmen to adapt to. You have, in Cadillac's case, an older crowd coming in. It's like, why do I want a CTSV? Well,
why do I want an ELR?
Why did anybody want? It's a good car. It was just priced
$80,000, $85,000.
Yeah. Or we could say that we are having the same chat about Jag as we did about Dodge, just with a different
fair enough
set of buyers.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I think Jag is the difference between Cadillac and Jaguar is that Jag retained the cars that the traditional customers were looking for and supplanted it with weird stuff like the I-Pace. Whereas Cadillac was like, oh, I'm sorry, you liked vinyl roofs and Jesus Christ.
White wall wheels.
Yes. I'm going to try that again. It's different from Cadillac.
Exact same delivery and everything, too.
Yeah, it's different from Cadillac. It's different than Cadillac, where you had customers going in looking for something with a vinyl roof and wire wheels and white walls. And the salesperson was like, well, I have this 600 horsepower supercharged beast for you. Can I interest you in that? And they're like, no. Well, what about like a midsize SUV? Do you have that? No.
I've got this $100,000 Escalade.
Yeah, seriously. And so Cadillac...
They had that SRX for a while, though.
I liked the SRX.
I
liked it.
I liked the second iteration.
Weird and blocky, and you could get it with a North Star, and it was just a heap of junk, and I loved it.
Did you like the first generation?
Yes.
SRX? Wow.
Because no one else did. That seems to be my MO.
Yeah, but see, there's plenty of cars. So we were talking about that earlier, like the i8, right? I'm thrilled they make the i8. Great. I'm so happy that they've made it. I personally don't even like walking on the same side of the street as an i8.
I don't like being in the same county as an i8.
I agree, for so many reasons. Yeah. And the door's like this big, and you get out and, here we go, honey, let's get out.
It's a deal breaker.
And the interior is awful, and I mean...
It's not special.
No, it's not. And granted, it actually doesn't sound that bad. It sounds pretty good sometimes.
You mean the digitally manufactured engine noises that it gives off?
Even from outside, though.
Because there's a speaker outside that says, hey, look at me, I'm a sports car.
But it doesn't sound that bad. It's a little plastic surgery, right? It is a little bit like breast implants, but I've seen good breast implants.
Well,
did you know what I mean?
I have not.
It's one of those things where I'm happy they made it, because I think for the right people that I do not see eye to eye with at all on their taste in cars. It does a lot of great things for those
taste
people.
in anything.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
I imagine there's a lot of people with... I imagine a lot of old Saab buyers went that way, and they have very tiny little glasses, like architect's glasses, where, those guys who, like, the lenses for their glasses are about a half an inch, and they're, what do you do? Oh, I designed the building, and you're, okay, you probably have a Saab.
Really? They would go from Saab to an i8?
What other weird things are you buying? What else is out there?
They're still driving their Saab.
But fair enough. The point being is that
because they have taste. There's a difference between design and style.
Not late model Saabs. Not late model. Early Saabs.
Yes, those are GM. Those are GM cars.
Right.
No, there's a difference between design and style. The i8 precariously balances between those two worlds.
You don't think it was oddity for oddity's sake? Just like late Saabs, where they were just making things different to make them different?
This is a German manufacturer we're talking about.
Yes, but it doesn't mean they can't be...
No, it's like asking, have you been in a new Mercedes with the Hey Mercedes, the M-Bucks system?
No.
And you can, so...
Or if I have, I'm aware of it.
One of my favorite things, and I don't know why, probably because I'm weird, is asking a digital assistant to tell me a joke. And Cortana has the best puns, Alexa has the best variety, and Apple doesn't understand me. But you ask, Mercedes knows one joke, and you say, hey Mercedes, tell me a joke. And she goes, I can't. My engineers were German. And so when you ask me this question about BMW going for wacky and oddity for oddity's sake, I don't think they have it in them, because they're way too serious. When they released the i8, they thought, this is the sports car of the future. Look at us. I don't think it was... I agree with you. I am so glad they made it. But I don't think... I don't think they did it just on a whim. They poured a lot of...
Yeah, I agree.
Obviously it's been eclipsed in terms of technology and in terms of performance and capability and what you can do with a sports car today, as is the case with, always finding a new tip of the spear. That trickle-down theory where, you can get into a four-door sedan in a Tesla and just toast the buns off any i8. Sorry, what was your question?
I think it was to be a front runner in the electric hybrid sports car realm. I mean, at the time when it released, there was really nobody that made one.
That's true.
I agree.
And you could say like the first Tesla Roadster, but that really wasn't.
Yeah,
it was not even.
It was a Lotus with a electric powertrain.
And so, like, in many regards, they were the first ones to actually do one that worked. Honestly, decently well. It is a sports car.
But why let it go the way of the 370Z? Like, wouldn't you want to take modern technology and continually refresh it and update it and say, you know what, we are going to stay at the forefront of this path that we cut down with a machete?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it was very intentional, and I think it was very done in, I'm sure, the most German way possible. The meeting would probably be the funniest place ever to be. But
for us.
Yes.
For them, it would be very serious.
And the word maximum is used over and over again.
Maximum.
We must
Dynamic.
do this to the maximum. Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Dynamism.
Yeah. I think they were very specific about it, but I think they also could have gone a million other routes that weren't so aggressive for the sake of being aggressive, right? That car looks like, I mean, if you were transplanted here and, from 10 years ago and you saw that car first, you would go, oh my God, it's 3034.
Yeah.
And, it looks like it is from a completely different era of car. They could have gone about what they were doing in the same way with something that was way less off the deep end. Mm-hmm. And I think probably could have come up with a way more successful car as well. Because a mid-engine, or whatever you want to call it, styled car that has the same look as, many of the mid-engine hypercar, supercars that are out there, could have been styled in a way that appealed to a more broad stroke right? Where it's BMW. I mean, they know how to make a car that's lust-worthy for a big, gigantic audience. They didn't. They knew they were taking something completely on the other side and penning some completely on the other side, and making speakers and ridiculous drivetrains and scoops and doors that are 12 feet long and interiors that are like just strange. And I think that car is the version of the German version of like, hey, screw it, let's try it out, because BMW has had a lot of really interesting designs on the concept side. And most of what comes to market, even through all the concepts, and they've got some really unique stuff, most of what comes to market is, it pushes the envelope on design as far as taste is concerned a little bit sometimes, right? Like when each
8 Series.
oh yeah, oh god, the new Z4. But that said, they know for the most part they can push the envelope a little bit, but they know they're going to sell cars. Even the 3 Series, right? The 3 Series is one of those things where every time it comes out, everyone kind of goes like, I don't know, okay, and then it grows on them and they love it. And the i8 though, that was a really interesting thing.
I think it still turns heads.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it looks like nothing else out there.
It looks like nothing else.
It looks like Will Smith from like iRobot should be getting out of it.
Absolutely.
Then it's like a Halo car.
Is it? Would you consider that car a Halo car?
Well,
I consider it like a sideshow almost.
And I would consider it an evolutionary successor of the M1. The M1 was goofy and crazy, and they only made a select amount, and they only made it for a short amount of time, then stopped.
The M1 was an
And
interesting
it was
car.
mid-mounted.
I think we would have to revisit. Chris has a great point, because if you think of the M1 in its shape and
BMW didn't even design it in-house.
what it looked like compared to everything else out there, it's kind of like, what is this hunchback beast?
But to that point, it didn't sell.
Right.
And it's,
who are you going to sell it to?
And it's still looked at as somewhat of an oddity, right? And yes, it has collector value, but it's still an odd car, right?
Not to bring up AMC for the third time in this podcast, but I would say
it's the only time in the history of any recorded audio or video that AMC's been brought up.
I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden, I saw a successor.
I saw a Pacer.
I saw a successor to the AMX in the M1. Like,
okay.
if AMC had the money, that Dick Teague would have designed that weird wedge. He would have, I mean, in the resourceful way that AMC was, they would have like pulled a Gremlin out and said, okay, here's our M1. But okay, so back to the i8. You're right. It's futuristic. There's nothing else like it out there. It sounds weird. It looks weird. I would venture that it's less of a Halo car, not a sideshow, but it's a aspirational car that has a complete disconnect to the rest of the lineup, like the GTR does with Nissan.
Fair enough. I think that's really where it does get bucketed, and I think in some ways it serves as a better platform for them to put their toe in the water for what the future Halo car would be. Mm-hmm. There's good examples that are banging around in my head without names, but I will, I'm sure, think of one and go, oh, that was a great example. But
we can come back to it.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's take that same token before of your favorite era of car and talk about 70s and 80s. All of just the best American stuff in the world.
You know me so well.
All right, so unlimited budget, unlimited space, unlimited whatever the case. What is your favorite Malaise Era car that you would have in your garage that you would look at every single day, drive every single day?
Oh, man. Okay, wait. Give me a decade. Give me a spread of years.
Let's go 78 to 83.
Does he really need unlimited space and money?
Yes, because it has to be maintained. It has to start and run.
I feel like you could just have a garage with a seat of
$10,000.
Yeah,
you need
I mean,
it's
seriously.
The warehouse is the cost to house the 1,200 cars that cost $1,200 a piece.
I actually looked at a garage over by the Northridge train station, and the deterrence was not the location in terms of like what the surroundings were, but it was how do I get here?
Oh yeah.
How do I get here every day?
You're a big proponent of public transportation.
Well, train station, so that would have been cool.
Yeah.
But enough about me. Let's get back to me and this car, 78 to 83.
78 to 83.
Dude, that's like
There's
that's
some
like asking,
good stuff in there.
do you want ground glass with your milk, or do you want cyanide? Do you want to die slowly, or do you want to die with foam out your mouth?
Do you remember old Saturday Night Lives? There was a Dan Aykroyd one where he plays like the shady toy guy.
No.
And they're interviewing him. It's like a 2020 kind of special, or like a hard hitting 60 Minutes kind of thing. And they go, sir, you've known for making very dangerous toys. And he's like, what are you talking about? I don't make dangerous toys. What about this doll? And they pull it off. There's a knife under the head, and all this kind of stuff. But the best part of it is, I want to say towards the end of it, he goes, now, there's just no excusing this product. This product is just called Bag of Glass. it's just a bag of shattered glass. And, oh, no, the kids love it. They play with it.
Yeah.
And, they love it. It's a great kids game.
I'm going to take a handful of that bag of glass, just like rub my eyes with it, swallow handfuls of it so I don't have to answer this question. So, as we know, the 70s were a dark, dark time for performance. I take a look at the decade as kind of like turning off a faucet. In 1970, the water's just like streaming through, and then 71 we go to we start transitioning to unleaded fuel and going from SAE gross to net horsepower, and then 72 the death of the Hemi, the death of so many big blocks. 1974 is the last performance big block with the Firebird and the Trans Am. Super Duty 455. The handle gets a little bit tighter, and then there's the 55 mile per hour speed limit. There's catalytic converters in 1975, and then the Mustang 2.
It's beauty.
So we get to 1978, and the 55 mile per hour speed limit is mandated on all cars. So by 1979, what do you have? You've got Pontiac had a handful of 400s lying around that they threw in the Trans Am, and then that was it.
80 mile an hour speedometers.
80 mile per hour. Oh, sorry, that's what I meant. Not 55 mile per hour speedometers, but in 1978.
But didn't they all had the 55 marker on them though, didn't they? I think they all had to have like an orange 55 marker.
There's a huge 55 marker to denote what you should be driving at, and then all of them were capped at like 80.
Yeah.
You can see it in like Porsches.
How fast? Do you know why I pulled you over? No, I don't. I don't know how fast I was.
The needle was buried, sir.
Yeah,
I'm
for
sorry.
a long
I'm
time.
so sorry.
Yeah.
I remember seeing a GM Dustbuster van getting pulled over for going 70 on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and I thought, God, that's so fast, man. So a car, unlimited space. I like oddball Malaise Era cars where they try to.
That's why I asked this question.
Yeah, I like oddball cars where they try to overcome the complete crapitude with features. So, you've got like a 1979 Chrysler Fifth Avenue where they sandwiched an electroluminescent light in between the panes of glass. So it lit up and said Fifth Avenue, and it was just this beautiful
It was
thing.
Really cool, though.
Yeah, it was really cool.
For the era, that was like, whoa.
It's like, wow, I'm buying this awesome car from a bankrupt car company on a platform that was introduced in 1968.
And everything had equalizers for the stereos.
Oh, yeah.
Why
the more sliders, the better
Yeah.
for those paper cone, 10-watt systems. Anything with the digital dash.
Yeah.
I would love. Ooh, I know what I would love. I actually like the Gen 3 the best, but since we're sandwiched here, an Aston Martin Lagonda.
Oh God.
Anything. Look, if you want a second date, pick me up in something with hideaway headlights and/or a digital dash.
So one time I was over at Aston Martin, Lamborghini, Aston Martin, whatever the service place is over in West LA. And,
West LA, yeah.
And there was a Lagonda in there up on the lift, and I think I came in a Gallardo or whatever I came in, and so we're talking Lamborghinis or whatever, and I kind of peered around the corner and went like, "It's a Lagonda?" And he goes, yeah, it is. And,
that response is perfect. Yeah, it is.
And,
in fact, I'm going to be here another 12 hours.
Well, that was the thing. And I said, what is that doing in here? Especially, at the dealer, you think maybe like an Indy would be taking care of it at this point in time. And he goes, it's kind of our wife. We've just married to this thing. It never goes away, and there's just always something. And it spends more time here than it ever goes anywhere. But the fact that there's somebody out there who loves that car enough that they're bringing it to the dealer, and they're dealing with little fidgety stuff too. I forget whatever it was. It was something like, come on, he's really dealing with that here. Like the trunk needed to be aligned a little bit.
Hey, my left fuel tank is acting up.
Yeah, one of my 37 headlights is not behaving properly. It takes a really special person to own a Lagonda.
And I need to meet this person.
Yeah, but I've never actually met someone that owns a Lagonda.
This is the recurring thing, right? Like, do you know somebody with a Charger?
Well, yes. I know a few people with Chargers.
Okay, so anything with a digital dash and hideaway headlights. Give me a 1982 Chrysler Imperial Frank Sinatra edition.
God.
I'm just going to go for the Baroque, gross, soggy chassis kind of things.
Yeah.
A 1982 Lincoln Mark 6.
Ooh. I like Mark 7s a lot.
Mark 7s are awesome. Anything when talk about repurposing a platform.
Yeah, oh my Lord.
My God.
That thing
Fox platform.
Yeah.
And here's the fun fact is that it's pretty much plug and play. So if you want to take like an 84 Continental, the Bustleback Continental, it's a Fox body underneath. You can throw as many Mustang performance parts to that, and then take that to the drag strip. Maybe not with a Tesla, but scare the honkers off most of the people there.
I always wanted a hopped up Mark 7. That was the thing that, for whatever reason, just the little hump in the trunk and the big ridiculous lights and the silly roof line.
I never liked. Look, I think Lincolns should have vertical taillights. When you have that horizontal strip with the horizontal backup lights, that ruined it for me. You do something, put them in the bumper, get rid of that strip. Let me just clean it up a bit, and then
so you must have hated the Mark 8.
No, well, yes and no. I thought the Mark 8, the horizontal taillights worked on that. It was the first American production car with the xenon headlights, high intensity discharge lights. Sorry, and it had that 32 valve V8.
That was special when it came out.
It moved. Yeah. It really moved. It did not hold up well. You cannot find the headlights anymore.
You cannot find Mark 8s anymore.
You can't find the rear surround that goes around the back window anymore. They all bunched up. But yeah, it was an awesome performance coupe. Yeah.
That was the same time that they came out with the Lincoln LS too, around the same time.
Lincoln LS. So Lincoln LS came out on the tail end of Mark 8 production.
Yeah, and that was going to be slated to like really change things for Lincoln.
That was Jacques Nasser saying, let's take this Jag platform and also make it a Thunderbird,
right,
and also make it a Lincoln LS.
They were trying to re-Fox body it.
Let's take all of this money that we have and dole it out over 5 performance marks, so each one of them is half-assed. Let's give an Aston Martin a Panther steering wheel. Let's give Jag Ford underpinnings. Let's give the baby Jag a Mondeo platform. So, this is an hour in itself when you talk about Ford's performance group of Lincoln. The fact that Lincoln was roped in with Aston Martin and Jag and Volvo in the first place is laughable. But when you take a look at what Ford tried to accomplish, what's the phrase? Champagne taste on a beer budget?
Yeah.
That's exactly what Ford did. Ford said, let's fortify
womp
womp the premier automotive group. Yeah. Let's try to do to these wonderful marks how we market Fords. It just didn't work. But that's we could go on that for hours.
Yeah, they thought that car was going to be it. I remember when that came out, that they were like, "Oh, this is the new direction. This is it." you know.
It was a great car. Would it be even better if the manual had made it into the V8? Yeah, absolutely. But again, here's an example of a car, a great car in search of a buyer. I'm sorry, a very good car in search of a buyer. It's like the I-Pace. You have people going in and buying Continentals and town cars and big floaty air suspension behemoths who are between the age of retirement and death. They're not going to buy a sports sedan that competes with BMW and Mercedes at the time. They don't. Yeah, they're not going to buy that. Having said that, I don't think it should have been a Ford. I don't know what that car should have been, but it goes back to the dealers. They're like, how am I supposed to sell this? You know, the blue hairs don't want an LS. They want a town car. You know, for the longest time, you know, in the mid 2000s, Lincoln was town car and Navigator, nothing else. And those are both body on frame, V8 powered sofa mobiles. And can you find an LS anymore?
When you see them, you're like, oh,
you're like,
wow.
Ooh, unicorn.
Yeah. So what modern cars then? Just getting back
to your original question.
No, yeah, no. We'll get back into the modern end, but so we have this question that continues to get bounced around in every circle. It seems like, which is, if you could only have one car. No, ready? No, but here's the kicker. One car, no matter what. You go to U-Haul and you're like, I need a truck, and like, here's that car. You go to your mom's house and you go, oh, I need to borrow your car. Oh, guess what I've got? Same car. No matter where you look, no matter what rental car agency, no matter
East Germany,
it is the same car, no matter what.
Okay.
What car do you go with for that eternity car? Because now we start every time we talk about this, it gets into interesting points, because there's some people that want space and need to tow, and there's some people that need something that's good in weather, and there's some people that are like,
you know the answer to this.
I do know the answer to this.
You know the
but
answer
I didn't know if you were going to skew from it. I didn't know whether you were...
No, because so I had an open mind when you asked the question. I was like, what car? What car? Oh, but it needs to do this and it needs to do that, and I'm like, wait a second!
Oh,
I know this car.
I was hoping that there would be something else that was secretly behind another closed door.
Is that one off the table? Is that one off the table?
Let's say yes for the moment. No. Let's say what car other than that. I'll whisper what that car is, so you don't have to have it leave your mouth, so no one will ever have to be. It's an all-road. But that said,
I love it when you whisper that.
But what about without the all-road?
Well, let's go through the criteria here. Is it a forever car?
Forever car, no matter where you go.
Car.
No matter where you go.
Well, that rules out, you know.
You go to Motor Trend, then we got a car for you to test. And they just hand you the same damn keys.
Yeah. I mean, this is a weird, surreal parallel universe. So you want something that can handle. You want something that can haul. You want something that maybe could tow. You want something with trim dimensions, so you can pull it into most parking spots and parking garages. Damn it! You know where we're going again.
You want something that starts every day. You want something that...
Okay,
you want something that doesn't slam down on the ground overnight.
Wow.
But no, if that's the car, then that's the car.
Well, look, I can only speak from personal experience.
Well, you have the oddity.
I have an oddity. You know, because I was thinking when we were talking about this, I thought, okay, is there something French? Is there something that's different oddball that I would get? Is there something Swedish? And I thought, no, I've been down that road. I thought a Volvo V70R would just be awesome, you know, like oddball, 300 horsepower, 5-cylinder spaceball shifter, but that thing just beat you up. I could not fall in love with that car. And I think if you're going to have an everything car, you shouldn't be resigned to it. You should have the same love for it that you did the first day that you saw it. And, you know, because it's a forever car, you're going to be 80 years old and still looking back at that car. And you don't want to think, oh, that car beat me up, or, oh man, that thing has a turning radius the length of 3 football fields, or Oh man, I can't see out of that car. You want something that just kind of suits you, that you have a chemistry with, that you have a shorthand with, and
A friendship with.
a friendship with. And I am not going to. This car is my Macbeth. I'm not going to say its name. You can whisper it all you want, but for me, I would get something very much along the lines of something I already have.
That's interesting though, because I don't think there's a lot of people in the world that own that car. Because every time I ask
Anymore.
this, no, but I'm not talking about
Okay.
that car specifically.
Oh,
I'm talking
okay.
about the idea of this car. Because most of the time when I ask this question to people, they come up with whatever car it may be, and usually it's something reasonably affordable. It's not like they're, like we were talking about an FF the other day, and we've got one for sale right now, so it's on the mind. It's like the best multitasker ever. I mean,
Seriously.
holy hell.
Yeah.
But that said, most of the time when this question's answered, it's like reasonably affordable cars. But most people don't own them. And it always kind of begs the question where it's like, well, if that's the best, why don't you have it? Why not be, you're getting most of the check boxes you want checked. Why not have it? And that's where you get into these other weird, dimensions of what the soul and the fizz that, the car gives you kind of thing. But you have it. And that's interesting because I bounce from car to car to car to car to car. There's just never-ending cycle of cars just going in and out the door. But you've held that car, kept it, put miles on it, and it's still something that you're like, yep, that's the one.
Yeah. Are you going to ask me a question?
No, I just was stating that. So what is the worst car that you ever remember driving? New, old? What stands out in your mind as that was the most horrific experience of my life?
Oh, that's easy. A 78 Mercury Bobcat. So here's a car that's supposed to be a small car, and you get in it, and the steering is slow and vague, and you feel like you're in a big car, but not in a good way. Like you're driving it, and you're like, oh my God! Like how did people drive this? How did people consciously say, I want a Ford Pinto or I want a Mercury Bobcat because I want a small car? It didn't feel like a small car. It felt like it was kind of like the worst characteristics of everything that you could think of. Horsepower, no. It's a small car in the sense that if something hits me, I'm going to die on impact. But it felt like a big car in all the worst ways of like, wow, I'm never going to complete this turn because the steering is heavy and slow, and wow, the curb is like way over there now. I don't know where I'm going. Do I feel safe? No. Do I feel happy? No. Is there anything on the radio? No, it doesn't work. That was a collection of, if we're going to talk about Malaise stuff, that was, for me, the epitome of Malaise, where everything that you did with that car, you hated
It's just a letdown.
so much. There was the movie Cujo featured a Ford Pinto, and to this day, I am convinced that the dog was not after the mom and the kid. It just wanted to decimate that car because it hated that car so much. Car sucked. So,
all right, then what about modern? What's the car that's let you down? It doesn't have to be the worst thing, but what's the car that you had higher hopes for, and when you got in it, you just were absolutely let down by it?
Oh man, that's something I have to think about.
And we kind of have alluded to this in earlier conversations, and
I can't believe that you have the standard Verizon ringtone on your
you know
phone.
why? Because I can't stand the sound of any ringtone, so I'd rather it be something that I already don't like.
That takes me back to 2005, like when people wore their phones on their
You know
belts.
what? I want a StarTech phone again. Do you remember the StarTech?
I had several
The best
of them.
thing, the StarTech was the best because
Yep.
you could just flip a battery out, put another one on.
Yep.
That thing got signal. It didn't matter where you
I
at.
know.
Buried alive? Yeah, I'm buried alive. Yeah, plot
And I
number
could answer
12.
it just
yeah.
with a flick of the wrist and be
Yeah.
like, talk
if
to
it-
me.
Like if it was dark outside, you couldn't see where the numbers were.
No, the number's lit up on StarTech.
Not the very first
Oh,
ones.
you got really early StarTech.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't come
Very
online until later with those.
The very first ones, like the back.
Are you from
light.
Ohio?
There doesn't have to be modern cars right now, right? They're all kind of the same in a lot of ways. There's these two buckets, and we discussed this offline actually last time we were talking, Chris and I and Bernard actually. That modern cars, there's kind of two buckets to them. There's enthusiast cars, and then there's the appliance cars that most people buy. Yeah, and it's just, there's a place to put my coffee in. It's a place for me to get from A to B, and I don't really care. It looks reasonably good enough. And then there's kind of these real two divisions of the car world that everyone just kind of refuses to admit really exist, that it's two totally different paths. But the stuff on the appliance side, like, yeah, if you put me in most any modern car and had my eyes closed and all the badges were taped over and whatever, it's just all kind of...
It's the same.
And there's nothing wrong with it, right?
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's
and
fine.
Said in that matter, it's fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
And on the enthusiast end, obviously, you could put me in a number of those cars blindfolded, and I could tell you what I'm driving.
Yeah.
In a lot of different cars.
Didn't Chevrolet make an entire commercial set trying to convince you when they taped over all the badges that it was?
Oh, something. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not a real person. I'm an actor.
Yeah.
So.
So it doesn't have to be that it was a bad car, but it's just that the spread between what it should be and what it was.
Yeah, I am desperately trying to think of it, and that's the thing about forgettable cars.
No, fair enough, yeah.
But I mean, and as I rack my brain on it, I think of the opposite, where like you get in a Honda Accord Sport. That thing is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great car.
That thing is great.
Yeah.
You know, it might be a competitor to the Camry and the Malibu and the Fusion.
That was the Chevy that we needed.
Yeah, that was a Chevy that we needed. But you get in the Accord and you're like, holy hell, I could drive this for 10 years and I would enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know, if I had to drive a Honda Accord Sport for the next 10 years, I'd be fine with it.
That's why I think that the NSX is going. I think the NSX right now is an incredible car that's being highly ignored because it is a multitasker.
It's fine.
It's fine.
That's it. That's exactly what I said when I got out of that car.
Yeah.
It's all right.
But that's the thing. If you want a sports car or a car that kind of fits in that realm of the entry exotic, if you want to call it, it does kind of everything, and it's quite good.
Fine.
But it's not exciting.
Oh God, no! I mean, for 160,000 or 200,000 out the door,
I know it's a lot.
I would get a 570. I would get a GT3. Actually, no, I'd just get a GT3. Story over.
Oh God, we're the GT3 conversation.
You should not be nonplussed when you get out of the supercar.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, look, I got to drive that on the most amazing track at the Honda.
You were at Mugello, weren't you?
No, I was at the Honda Proving Grounds in Takasu.
Oh.
So they have a track that's modeled after, their proving grounds is modeled after the Nürburgring, and they call it Windy Road. You know, it's like, oh, where are we going? No, Windy Road. All right, great, thanks. But, you know, in typical Japanese fashion, they import trees and soil and pavement and everything to make it feel just like you're in the Black Forest. And you're going around the corners and you've got trees around you and you're off camber and you're jumping and you're doing all this great stuff. And I'm following the lead engineer of the NSX through this stuff, and this dude can drive, and my palms are sweaty because I don't want to bin a NSX, which you can't because all-wheel drive and traction control. And yeah, there was some thrill to that, but there was no drama to it. There was no excitement to it. I got out, I'm like, all right, you know, that was good. And thank you for reminding me because I had completely forgotten about that, about saying that when I got out of the car. But I got back to Motor Trend. They were like, how was it? I was like, it's fine.
Yeah. But that's the interesting part, though, with that car to me, is that if I had to get stuck with a car of that, you know, kind of in that arena, I'd probably want that car because it's like an Accord on the inside. You can just kind of just go about your day with it, where like I had a 720S that I was driving for a little while, and it's just mind-bogglingly good.
Yeah.
But by the time I get out of that car, I'm kind of like, okay, that was fine.
You need a cigarette.
Yeah, a cigarette. I need a pack of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Like
You need a
World
patch.
War II Lucky Strike unfiltered.
Yeah, seriously.
So
Good color too.
yeah. So it's you know, I think in many ways that NSX is the best appliance car for the enthusiast. It's kind of this weird
But that's
crossover.
depressing.
Yes, I agree, but I also think that in a lot of ways the first NSX was the same thing.
Oh, I disagree with that.
It was a fantastic driving car. It was,
yes.
and I love them. But its peers were these pure Ferrari high, these beautiful sounding looking cars, and its peers were pretty much the same spread that we have today with the peers. If you got in an NSX and drove it then, it was great. But then if you got into a peer of the same era, especially into the early 2000s when we were getting some really, interesting stuff coming out, it still was good. It still's really good. It's one of my favorite cars. But it didn't have the same enthusiast end. But for a multitasker end, it was fantastic.
I am going to disagree with you on this. Because I think the original NSX was a great sucker punch to the rest of the performance car world in the best way. Because for the longest time before I ever drove one, I heard about how you get in, it's like a Honda Accord, everything falls to place, and it does. But you start that car, and
it has a Honda Accord. The same Honda Accord sounding starter.
It has the same Honda Accord sounding starter, but the growl of the V6, the visceral nature of that car, the way it handled, it was granular. You felt everything that was going on, and that was
vision.
That's Honda Accord style. Yeah. But what elevated it for me from a everyday sports car, and I'm going to throw those quotation marks around so everybody can hear it, is that it was a thrill to drive. I wanted to rev that up. I wanted that VTEC to kick in, yo. I wanted to slide it and to feel all that rawness that it was capable of. The new NSX reminds me of the new Volkswagen Tiguan.
Oh, jeez.
For a very specific reason. The Tiguan was designed in the most cynical fashion for fat Americans who never have anybody else in that car, but they think they need an SUV.
Oh, because the rest of the room inside that car is absolutely unusable?
No, just because it is designed for Americans, the same way the Passat is designed for Americans, where you have a German saying, oh, you don't want fully independent suspension, you don't want driving dynamics, you don't want any, you just want a big fat car that you can just drag yourself and get your triple venti latte after you go to Panera. Fine, here's your car. And I'm not saying that the Honda engineers were cynical. In fact, I don't think they were cynical at all. Much like the Germans with the i8, I feel that they were passionate about it. But it is a simulation of what a great driving experience is. You have that digital sound popped into your ear. You have a hybrid powertrain that takes care of every turn for you. You have torque vectoring. You have the motors that pull you around to correct your bad apex. And so it's a way where like the Tiguan is like, oh, this is what you want for an SUV. Honda was like, this is what you want for a performance car. And they forgot the emotion. They gave you a simulation of emotion. They gave you the simulation. It's got the performance, and when that engine really gets going, it's a firecracker. I love it. I love the engine. The engine's great, but as a package, it's underwhelming because it tries to do everything for you. It tries to be that multitasker, which I don't think the original NSX was. I think the original NSX was a Soichiro Honda moment. The same thing he did. It's kind of like when he bought the Impala back in the 70s when GM was like, we can't have a car with a catalytic converter, and Honda bought one. They stripped it down. They added the CVCC technology to it, and Honda was like, here you go. Not malicious at all. He was just like, this is a solution that you haven't thought of. And so the NSX came out, and it was like, haha, watch this. And it was a sports car that just happened to be usable, whereas the new NSX is a usable car that just happens to be a sports car.
All right, and I'd like to end on that because that's fantastic. Derek, thank you so much.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do I shake your hand or do I just leave?
No, we do a secret handshake, so that way you can get out the door.
All right.
Yeah. Otherwise, we bill you.
Mic drop.
Dude, thanks so much.
Thank you, sir.
Awesome.